Welcome to Measurably Better Learning, the podcast built for learning and development professionals. Whether you're an instructional designer, L&D professional, or corporate leader, get ready for insights and ideas that will transform your approach to learning, training, and development. So let's dive in.
Welcome, everyone, to the Measurably Better Learning podcast. I'm Miriam Taylor, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Dr. Jerry Zandstra, and we are continuing our series, The Learning Leader As. I feel like the fill in the blank is getting longer and longer.
Well, it turns out there's a lot.
I know, exactly. But today I think it's particularly appropriate that we're talking about the learning leader as a financial manager.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both have been involved in adult learning for a long time. And we've seen the roles change and evolve. And you've also owned your own business, owned your own company, been involved in a lot of entrepreneurial things. So I think it's particularly appropriate we talk to you in terms of like the learning leader as a financial manager, which can sound scary, especially if you've come out of an instructional design background and you're like, what do I know about finance?
It's not our first language.
It's definitely not. Although you do love a good spreadsheet, but
yeah, no, but it's not. I mean, as a profession, right? Most of our peers, most people like you, came out of a classroom. Could be higher ed, could be elementary, but had a love for learning, had a love for helping people learn, and grew into a corporate or a nonprofit role or something like that. They didn't do an MBA,
right?
And they don't, it's not that they don't know numbers, it's that they don't know finance.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent distinction because it is very different.
Very different things.
Yeah.
And it part of it is you mentioned at the beginning that roles are shifting. And I think it used to be that, L&D professionals were thought of primarily as, we've used this term before, order takers. I need this, you give me this. I need, I have a request, you fulfill it. I want the double cheeseburger with, extra ketchup or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's shifted. And not everywhere. There are still many, many people like that.
Right.
But the shift is more to valued strategic partnerships where we aren't seen as just a passive production house, where we're seen as vital.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because of reskilling and upskilling and global competition and, the retirement of the baby boomers, right, of which I'm the last here, that all of this institutional knowledge that's leaving every time you have a cake and coffee at a retirement party. How do you capture all of that?
So, I think we all know the landscape has changed. The world is changing. And to your point, right, we, may not feel the most comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some sort of basic financial skills that an L&D leader needs today? And, how do we go about acquiring those?
Yeah. There's some wonderful courses online for basic financial management. Learning it is not difficult for us to do. But it turns out that the requirement isn't so much that we learn how to operate a spreadsheet. It's actually relationship driven.
It is. Yeah.
It's the CFO. Find out who your CFO is and go bring that person cake or something.
Maybe with a spreadsheet. No,
with a spreadsheet. Yeah, with a spreadsheet on it, built on it.
Or at least cake he didn't pay for.
And so I'm going to reference Keith Keating. Keith is the CLO of BDO Canada. BDO is a global organization, more than 100,000 employees globally. And Keith finished his PhD, and his dissertation is exactly on this. And I'm a little bit of a nerd. I do occasionally read a good dissertation. There aren't many, but I don't even read my own. My own is terrible. But Keith's is fascinating, and he said he's got a couple of different points. Number one, the CFOs get it, which is awesome. So he interviewed a bunch of CFOs. They get the importance of training, which I always thought.
I was going to say that's different than what we often hear, like anecdotally at least.
Right. You would think, no, they don't care about it. Turns out they do. They care deeply because they know that people are their most important assets.
That's true. Yeah.
And upskilling those and reskilling those people and introducing them to new tech. That's Keith's first point. We don't have a care problem.
Okay. what's our problem?
Well, that's pretty
Right.
profound.
Right?
They know people are important. They undervalue training. They know it's important. They undervalue it, is his second point.
Okay. Yeah.
People are important. Having the right skills is important. Nobody has to make that case to their CFO, hopefully. If you
Right.
do, you need a new CFO.
Right.
But the CFOs don't necessarily connect the dots. People are important. There's this training thing over here. It's bridging that gap that they don't really get. They don't know how to do that. And the reason why is because they don't know the metrics.
Okay.
They
Which
don't know
that we do hear that sometimes.
they don't know how to judge it.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So they value it. They value people. They value training, but they don't know why. And the gap is the why. If I look at, I'm the CFO, I'm going to put in a new machine. It costs me $8.5 million. It's going to produce this many parts. I make this much money per part. I can figure out value return really, really quickly on that. There's maintenance and electricity and supplies and all those things and people to operate it. This is more nebulous.
Mm-hmm.
And so Keith is making the argument that what we need to do is help get to know our CFO.
Okay, sure.
Assume that they value people,
Mhm.
assume that they value training, and assume that the gap is that they don't know the metrics. Help them determine the metrics. I have read this, and we have an article coming up.
Yeah,
We're going
we
to
do.
post a link to this
Mhm.
thing, but
Okay.
it is a it is a dissertation worth the time.
Okay.
Because it's incredibly insightful.
Well, when we come back, we're going to unpack this a little more specifically. You talked about we need to know and explain better metrics. So we'll
Mhm.
get into that when we come back.
Okay.
Imagine a world where every training session, every learning module, and every translated document is aligned with your company's unique goals and global ambitions. Welcome to Ingenuity, where we don't just talk about elevating your corporate learning, we make it happen. At Ingenuity, we understand the heart of your business is its people. That's why we specialize in creating custom learning solutions and translation services that are not just effective, but are designed specifically for your business's global needs. Let us show you how learning cannot be just better, but measurably better, with solutions tailored just for you. Learn more in the description below.
Welcome back, everyone. As promised before, we kind of left it with CFOs understand the value.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly understand the value of people, but they don't really know what metrics to use,
Right.
or really maybe what the value, how to interpret those.
Right.
So, can you give us maybe a summary?
Sure.
The dissertation obviously was phenomenal. It had a lot of material, but what kinds of metrics would be helpful?
Yeah. And they're going to be quantitative and qualitative.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think that qualitative, story-based, narrative-based don't move people, especially CFOs.
Right.
They are human beings. They do have hearts. But you can't rely on that
Right.
and just that. You have to be able to tell a good story and back it up with metrics. And the metrics have to move beyond things like, did you like this?
Right.
Yes, I did.
Smiley face survey we reference a lot, right?
Right. Did you learn from this? Yes. The financial management piece, I think it used to be you were thinking about managing a budget. I had a budget of $1 million. I've got X number of employees. I've got some software costs. This is my learning budget here. That is managing that budget, but it's not managing expressing the value of learning. And that's what the CFOs are asking for.
Okay.
We agree with you. Learning is important. Tell us why. Show us that it's valuable. And so I think you start connecting back to what are the quarterly goals of the company? What are the overall financial goals? And anytime you can make connective tissue between something that the C-suite cares or the public board, maybe a private board, cares very deeply about, which is financial performance. Anytime you can make those, ligament connections to say, we see this is important to you and this is how we, in our part, are accomplishing it. And then if you can show some numbers for how that's happening, that productivity is going up.
Right.
Now, it's not perfect.
Right.
Because the big thing is, well, you can't isolate all the other stuff.
You can't.
Right. But I can show you that we initiated this learning program here, and productivity went up
Mhm.
and scrap went down, mistakes went down, customer complaints went down. You might not be able to show that in a moment, but you can show that over time. Here's this regular pattern. And one of our fiscal goals is to reduce waste or cut down on customer complaints or improve profitability. The more you can connect those things, back them up with stories, because stories are powerful, but real data really really helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think those hard analytics are important, and I think that we can do a better job of measuring things like improved morale, increased innovation, and I do think we're capable of doing that. But as you said, tying those all back, to what the goals are for that quarter or that year.
And work with the CFO.
Absolutely. Right.
Get some time on the CFO's calendar. Not easy to do, very busy people, lots of demands on their time. But learn from them what's important to them, and more importantly, how they would like it expressed. It's pretty easy to guess what's important to them, but how would they like it expressed? And that's, where you get into communication. How often are you communicating? To whom are you communicating? Those, especially for chief learning officers or VPs or directors or whatever, you need to be constantly talking about the value that you bring. Not always an easy way to live, right? Because you're singing for your supper every single day, but so is everybody else.
Right. No, I mean, this alone, as we were talking with Keith and reading the study, actually brought up a lot of things that we, contrary to what sort of we've heard in popular opinion, right? Which just, I think, really underlines the fact that we should be having more frequent conversations with our CFOs, because maybe we're making assumptions that aren't correct. I mean, clearly we are.
We are.
And finding out what's important to them and how to communicate best with them, like you said. So let me ask you this. Like, we have this increased focus on financial acumen, right? And being able to speak value and measure value and all that. How has that really, just kind of, as we sort of conclude here, how has that overall impacted the role of a learning leader?
Yeah. At higher levels, you need to be able to read a profit and loss statement. You need to be able to read a balance sheet. And a lot of people in that position can, but some can't.
Right.
And for people that are a little newer into the industry that eventually want to rise to those positions, I used to tell my wife, and I have 3 boys, as you know all of them. But I tell them, whatever you study, eventually learn something about how finance works, because it is the lifeblood. It is literally the lifeblood of every organization. Great goals, great ideas, highly innovative, terrible financials.
Right.
You can't overcome it.
No.
Learn so basic P&L, right? Basic balance sheet. Learn how to read a budget. Learn how to look at a budget. Those things are all things. MIT has free courses, tons of free courses on basic finance. Hundreds of thousands of people take those courses. You don't have to pay anything for them. They're understandable. They're palatable. They're not like 300 level. They're just giving you the base level. That's a great place to start, and that's from the technical side, and then the relationship side. Work on those relationships. And maybe it's not the CFO. Maybe that lady is too busy, but the people, 2 clicks below them, who may be in that position someday, can really find a friend.
That's
somewhere.
a great way to summarize it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Find a friend somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you have any, just as we wrap up, any other parting words or just words of advice? I think you gave some great suggestions already, but any other suggestions to kind of a new or aspiring learning leader?
Yeah, keep working on it. Keep asking questions. It might not feel natural, right? But it will. In time, you'll be able to look at a budget and go, oh, I see what they're doing here. I see where their priorities are. Or look at a balance sheet and go, ooh, that's not good.
It's not good. Yeah.
Or wow, that's really impressive. In time, it's like learning a language. You're going to feel ham-fisted at first, but in time, it'll come naturally to you.
Okay. No, that's great advice. So thank you so much for joining us.
Mhm.
I do want to say we are going to share the link to the dissertation, and we actually have Dr. Keating joining us on a webinar.
do.
We have some articles, so there will be more information coming out on this. But thank you so much for
You
your
bet.
time.
Happy to.
Before we wrap up the show, if you're looking to dive deeper, we've got tons of free downloads, L&D resources, and details about upcoming webinars that you won't want to miss. They're found in the episode description. Plus, if you ever want to chat with either one of us, now's your chance. You can find links in the episode description to connect directly with Miriam or me. We're here to answer your questions and to discuss all things learning and development. And speaking of questions, we love hearing from you. Whether it's a question or a comment or a topic you're curious about, or if you just want to join the conversation, drop us a comment on your favorite social media channel. Your input shapes our shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. It's the best way to ensure you never miss out on our latest episode. We're excited to continue to transform learning into a measurable success with you. Until next time.